budget workshop fiscal year 2019-20 tax increment meeting. Roll call, please.
Mayor Hill,
Here.
Vice Mayor Brown, Commissioner Warren,
Present.
Commissioner Campbell,
Present.
Commissioner McCaskill. Here. Denise Kemp. And Jeff Rawls is not present.
We have a quorum. We will now have our invocation and our pledge. Vice Mayor.
Dear Heavenly Father, guide us, lead us, protect us. Help us to do the best we can for as many people as we can, for as long as we can. Guide us, strengthen us, and help us to make proper decisions. Take care of all of our citizens. Help us to go forth and do what is right for each other. Help us to have love and work together. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We're now open for public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Also, before we proceed, Ms. Lynch, I don't know if you plan on being here for the entire budget session. If you want to give your report or anything beforehand, if you got anything for us, just give you that opportunity to let know. Hopefully this won't be a long meeting, but I will give you that opportunity.
No, I think we've submitted everything for the August 8th commission meeting.
Moving forward with our budget presentation and discussion, Ms. Becker.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
First workshop today. I've already got complaints about keeping you here too long, so we'll go right into it. This year, as you know, the CRA revenues are comprised of a city share and a county share. I've reached out to the county. They have no intentions of increasing or decreasing their millage rate at this time. And I believe that it's on their agenda for Tuesday. We also have no intentions of changing our millage. Therefore, our formulas are going to remain the same this year. The tax increment values are where we get our revenues from. It's part of the formula. We budget at 95%. If you'll notice that from 18 to 2019, we're seeing a 13%, 10%, and a 10% increase. One thing that I will note is that these values from 17 and 18 are the final property values that are given out in October. This value right here was given out in July. Therefore, we won't have our final until October. Last year, all three values decreased. So that's something that we just have to be aware of, that they can change. Let's see. Also note that these three amounts are taken away from our total city amount. Therefore, if you're seeing a larger increase here than what we see in total property values, it's going to take away from general fund because these are in a separate fund. These are your actuals for 18, 19, and our budgeted figures for 20. Again, this is based on our formula. There's no way to really alter this unless we have different property values or if our millage rate changes. Same percentage increases as the increment values. Any questions so far? So we'll begin with downtown. It's a little bit small, forgive me, but if you have the packets, it's the same exact information in your packets. We still have the same SBDC allocation as last year. General fund is going to make up the difference. Well, let me start by saying we did have a request come in, a letter, and so either Ms. Kim can speak to that, or Jonathan, Mandy, or I can speak to it. That came out this morning, or yesterday morning, or this morning. I wasn't copied on the request, so I was just forwarded it today. And we are able to reallocate some dollars within this budget workshop if we see fit. We are under, if you will, budgeting or remaining conservative on the expenditure side for roughly $50,000, so we have some flexibility there. Just know that that doesn't give you any kind of cash balance forward. I don't know if you want me to go through this first and then talk about what we could reallocate and the requests were. We have a maintenance contract of $10,000. We added a professional services line to each of the 3 districts. This is to look at the plan, help with revamping the districts. It's based on a percentage of revenues for all 3 of the districts. Therefore, it may change. Yes.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Rawls is here.
Marketing and promotions, it's at $5,000 potential budget this year. We did budget last year significantly more than that, but there was never really any activity done with that plan. Therefore, we reallocated it elsewhere this year. Festivals are per the revised policy, $7,500 is in there. FRA, Christmas lights, those 2 are the same. Wayfinding, $3,000. Landscaping, $10,000, which is a decrease, but we did a lot of work last year in landscaping. We have site amenities at $10,000. A public art was requested by the Snyder Mural Committee for $10,000 to help with renovating the murals that they have currently and potentially doing a new mural. Property acquisition is a rollover. And let's see. Yes, we have 2 projects budgeted there, 15 each.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
When do we ask questions about each area?
We're pretty flexible. So
Yeah.
kind of informal in this process, so just chime in whenever you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so coming from the DPI and the revitalized downtown Palatka perspective, we were of the opinion and position that we thought that the momentum was building, so that more marketing of downtown Palatka and, for example, the trailways that we've gotten established here in town, more signage for downtown Palatka is required. And we felt like that the budget should remain at the $25,000 as opposed to decreasing it to $5,000, and that we should make efforts between now and during 2020 to improve the signage and marketing of Palatka.
Absolutely, if that's something that you all would like to do.
Okay.
So we can reallocate from elsewhere, or we can use some of that where I said that we have a little bit of a,
Okay.
it's just this year we budgeted like 30,000, I believe, maybe it was 25, and we haven't seen any use of that.
Well, maybe we need to work together with TPI and see what we can do, and I'll get them more active and get them,
Okay.
all right?
Have they given you any suggestions as to what they want by way of wayfinding?
I know what I want as a business person from downtown, and I can tell you that I reflect the other businesses downtown. We find that the signage for downtown shops is limited. The city of Palatka currently owns a sign that's in the parking lot behind the old city drug that advertises Mar Chili, that's owned by the city and managed by the city. Anyone else who has a business downtown, for example, me, if I'm on the other side of St. John's Avenue, because of the signage prohibition, I'm not allowed to market my shop on Reed Street. There is no signage that describes the other shops or businesses that are downtown Palatka on Reed Street, so that when people come through town, they don't know that we're there. That one sign that was put up with a hand pointing this way is wholly inadequate for supporting and marketing downtown Palatka. That's my observation.
I feel like that too, Mayor. I think that when I go, when I drive, I take stuff in my car and I pass it out in the hotels, and I don't really pass it out to my people I'm in meeting to, I pass it out to the person parking my car, the person that's behind the desk, the person that's, and people, they say thank you. Because some of the times they're looking for somewhere else to go to, and they have not heard about it. If you put some stuff out, or fix it where people can take it with them, then you get more bounce for your buck, and it doesn't cost anything but just a little push from the person's taking it, and we need to market us there.
I think the other thing is, we've already approved the purchase of the electronic sign. And we identified, and so since the last meeting, we talked about the area between the River Center and 3rd Street. And it seems like the 3rd Street marquee, the brick marquee, is gonna be the best spot for that, because it gives a person an opportunity to turn into downtown off of Reed Street, and it gives an opportunity to actually be able to, to put some stuff up. It talks about events, talks about local businesses or other things that are placed in downtown, and to be able to advertise certain programs or other things that are going on, and start to draw attention to those 30,000 plus cars that are traveling on Reed Street on a regular basis. But in addition, I agree. I think that the wayfinding signs, again, something we've talked about for a number of years, and Mr. Griffith has plans on those.
They're actually in, but they're not business specific. That's the only thing.
Can you let them know what the signs are that are in so far?
Yeah, they're what we call public purpose directional signage that point people to what we would call public amenities, the boat ramp, the park, public restrooms. I think what we're speaking about is something that you see like in a winter park where it's a wayfinding for businesses. You see them at every intersection, and you can change them out as businesses come and go. The only thing I would suggest is that if you do suggest the funding, we'd have to get with Mr. Lopnick or his replacement. It would require a code change because off-site signage is prohibited.
That's right.
And it may be something that may be allowed within the downtown district.
I would really like to explore that, and I think that we need to do, not just for me, but the other businesses. There are many, many nice restaurants downtown. As people drive down Reed Street they don't know about. In January, I have over 1,000 people come into my shop during the course of 2 weeks. Every January they come in. And I do everything I can to direct them to the businesses and the restaurants downtown. The only one they know about is Gator Landing, because I drive right past it on 17, and there's no question where it is. And I think that we miss a great opportunity in bringing people into the other businesses in downtown Palatka by the lack of advertising of what's downtown and the opportunities.
Anybody else?
Well, I mean, I kind of share that same sentiment in terms of like investigating to see what we can do through our Mr. Locknick or whoever his replacement is, because it sounds like it's more advantageous to the businesses that are Reed Street facing. So I really would, second that what she just mentioned in terms of investigating that. In terms of dollars, additional dollars, I think. In terms of the marketing piece, since it dropped so much, and we have 30,000 in Christmas lights, maybe we might be able to take 5 or 10 from that and apply it to that.
Yeah, that's a great segue, because I'm looking at $30,000 for Christmas lights, and I'm kind of curious as what that $30,000 actually gets us. That's a lot of lights.
Right.
Ms. Tucker?
Yep, so the $30,000 in lights gets us 3 of the large oaks lit in the park. It gets the clock tower lit and wrapped. It gets all of the trees down St. John's Avenue lit, including the 3rd Street gateway into the downtown district.
There was
And
a
that's
request
actually,
for more.
I'm sorry?
There was a request
And there was
for more.
a request for more than
In
that.
this letter, there's a request for more, so.
And that's the street close that I can get.
Man, I would like to bring that.
What you need?
Well, I'm sorry.
Hold on 1 second before we go there. Mr. Garner?
Well, there's a newcomer coming into town, the sign that says downtown, it didn't tell me anything. Coming in, I guess just to mark that this is the downtown area, but no arrows or anything else, unless I ride by it too fast or something. It just told me, here's a downtown sign.
Skip.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I apologize because I'm probably opening areas you've already rehashed, but this is all new.
Don't worry about it, you're different. So
I'm just as new as you are.
Sam normally rehashes them earlier, but you're
Okay,
actually quiet. Go ahead.
so I hope I'm just as polite as saying. So I'm looking at the top where it says property taxes, and it says downtown redevelopment. There's two numbers, one is the county share, one is the city share, and that's 379,000 plus. I looked down at the bottom line, what appears to be the bottom line of the downtown central expense, and there's a total of 326,000 plus. That's a difference of $52,000. Where is that 52,000? And if it's available, I got a suggestion.
Yeah, so that's what I just spoke to earlier, whenever I said that the revenues are actually a little bit more, the 372 is what you're looking at versus the 326, that we do have that a little bit available to not put roll forward, to absolutely reallocate that out. So that's where, I think this letter that they sent to me is about 60,000 plus whatever the Christmas lights. I hadn't spoken with Ms. Tucker. So obviously, we're not able to do all of that. We're going to have to reallocate some of the lines, the existing lines, but we are able to use some of that money. We just have to, again, remember that the last year, whenever the property appraiser came back with the October figures, they were decreased. So we can't just say, oh, I have exactly 50, this is a budget, so we're going to have to be conservative.
Okay, I have one other question, and I promise
We're
I'll try to
gonna
refrain.
come back to your one question after, because I think his comment's gonna be along the lines of what we just discussed.
Well, so I got a few things. Number one, wouldn't a modification to the city ordinance pertaining to signage need to be considered? Maybe y'all could come up with a special exemption or a special use section that would alleviate the anxiety of not being able to have off-site signage, especially if you're talking the downtown district. Number two, without going through this line by line, how much of this is recurrent revenue? Or is this all one and done? And then are we required to have any reserves?
You are not required to have any reserves
Okay.
in there. However, the projects, depending on, so we were heavy on some of the projects, so we did have some recurring rollover from some of the projects that weren't complete within one fiscal year. A lot of it, or I would say the majority of this is not. The only thing that is recurring would be the transfers amount, because those are the things that we have to do. The other things are definitely all requests. The FRA annual dues, the small business or SBDC, that's recurring. Other than that, it all can be reallocated.
And maintenance, and specifically the sign maintenance. If you go in that direction to have a lot more off-site signage, I mean, I could envision a large multiple sign board, that screams, this is what you have downtown, but I agree, but I think that's more of a function for your city commissioners than the CRA.
Yeah,
From the standpoint of the ordinance.
Yeah.
I want to tell us, I get so mad when I look at TV and I see Vernon and St. Augustine and all these people on there and what they're doing, even when we have our craft festival. When they have their festivals and have different things, they're always on there. Is there any way for us to go about having them take a better look at us and we get some of that?
TDC money, go after it.
Well, I don't care where the money comes from. I just think that we need
$400,000 a year.
Okay. We need to push to have some of that done, because everybody else surrounding us, they bring up, but they never talk about the stuff that we have here in town. We have that air show, we have a bunch of stuff going on. We have those fishing tournaments, and we need to have some way to get the word out that we're here and come see us.
You pay for it. It's,
Yeah,
you
we
just
talking
create-
money, we talking about money.
So Blue Crab actually did that this year. They did commercials. You create you have an allocation of dollars that you're gonna spend towards, whether it's just a downtown ad, a 30-second downtown ad, whatever it may be. And you do the concept that they call dollar TV ads, where you try to get the most economical ads. They may not show at the prime times, or you target where you're gonna be, but understand that those costs. And you can get around a lot of the copy costs because you've got TV quality production coming from school districts and the other places. But to allocate into the prime markets and the target markets, it's gonna be far different than doing the $2 spots. And so, what did you guys spend on your TV ads?
4,500.
And that-
45?
And you were doing mostly
And that wasn't
light
all
spots.
TV ads, but yeah, it was a 30-second and a 60-second.
So you're not gonna get a whole bunch of play on those, but they've got low-cost spots that you can get from TV, depending on what you produce, where you can actually start to push your stuff out. And so, I'm just trying to give you I'm giving you the
I
quick
hear what
version.
you're saying, but I was saying, we just need to see how to get it done.
That's how you get it done.
I know,
I'm
but
trying to
if
tell you.
there's, I don't wanna get it done, I want somebody else to get it done. I just wanna bring it to you.
And that's an additional cost. Back to your
Well,
question.
we talking about money now.
So in the, what I'm accustomed to from a state agency, and I know this isn't a state agency, so I'm going to ask it in those terms. When you collected tax dollars had to be spent in the year they were collected, and very little could be encumbered or rolled over into the next fiscal year unless your project was considerably done. So, and what I'm getting at is I know that grants have been issued in 2018 and 2019, and if those grants have not been completed, do they roll over into 2020? Do they take 2020 funds, or is it moved into an escrow type account so that it won't impact 2020?
So that's what we're talking about, whenever you don't have projects that complete in 1 year, it goes into a cash balance forward, or your reserve amount, and then we do a budget amendment the following year. We look at all the POs that essentially roll forward, or all the projects that are gonna be roll forward projects, and we have to come back and do a budget amendment to say, hey, we had $20,000 worth of projects that didn't get completed. However, the money did go back into the cash balance because it wasn't spent, and then reallocate it out. Now there are a lot of different rules depending on what kind of money. So this is not every type and every fund is like that, but this fund with some of the projects, like the grant projects, are earmarked. So I would say that it's specific to certain projects.
So any grants previously approved have their funding and would not adversely affect the 2020 budget if they were not completed?
Correct.
Okay. And if the project doesn't get completed, then do you have to return the money back to the county, or do you roll it over to the current fiscal year?
Yeah, we can roll it.
Okay, perfect.
Any other questions thus far? Comments? Moving forward?
Okay, down to the transfers that we have, and these are something that we've talked about before. Fireworks, Christmas lights go to the general fund, a portion of those. We have utility funds this year. Our CRA administrator salary has been moved out of the general fund and moved to the utility fund because her duties are grant related, and the majority of her grants are in that fund this year. We reevaluate each year. So that portion is going to go to the utility fund, and then we have the admin expense that's going to go to the general fund, which is a portion or a percentage formula. Any questions on downtown? Okay.
You okay with Christmas lights, everybody?
So before we move on from downtown, just want to note some of these requests that were in this letter. We talked about the marketing, the facade grant program was asked to be reintroduced. I don't know if that's the word, reintroduced, yes. Okay, for $20,000, Ms. Tucker and Mr. Griffith would have to speak on that because I believe there has to be some kind of revisions within the program to be able to do that. They did request for additional Christmas lights so that they allow them to include 11th Street from Reed to Madison. And then they said the art in public places, which I believe is the same as the mural.
It is.
It is, okay, perfect. So the only thing we don't have in there that we haven't discussed is the facade.
So 30,000 isn't Christmassy enough?
I guess not. It's always the number that causes the most questions, but then
I don't think there was
We
full
want more.
appreciation for what it took.
I didn't appreciate the full 30,000 being spent on what we got, so.
Addressing the request to light additional on 11th from Reed to Madison, there's not a whole lot to light there, and there's no electricity set up, so that would be an additional cost that would have to be incurred in order to do that.
and the facade.
Oh, the facade grant, yeah, right now, Mr. Griffith and I are in the process of reevaluating all the programs to bring forward to y'all again. The facade grant, one of the things that we saw would be to institute a time limit on all projects, to reevaluate the match of all the projects, and we had the idea of a possibility of combining all of the commercial projects into one to make it a simpler application process, especially for the committees that have to sit down and evaluate these. Did I leave anything out?
There was also the fact that some of the previous projects completed from approximately 2010 to 2012 weren't of great quality, and as staff who administer the project, we don't have a lot of say in the quality. So it's just something I would put out there. You're going to spend money on some stuff that may not be a marked improvement. If that's the most politically correct way to say it.
If we're gonna do, I've seen the facade grants done in other areas, a little differently than how they're done here in Daytona Midtown. They actually do, they have mandates on what type of signage you can have as far as lighted signs. They went away from a lot of the box lighted signs. They don't allow the wooden signs that we allow here. They went to single channel. I don't think you necessarily need a single channel sign. They're a lot more costly. But the lighted signs create some level of uniformity in what you get. You got some folks who have lesser quality signage that's up. The wooden signs, I mean, wow, we're historic in nature. There's no uniformity. People are putting all kind of stuff up, and we don't get a chance. We don't really enforce it the way we probably should as well. But those are some things I'd like to see us move forward to as we start to build downtown up. The facade grants before, some places, some businesses stucco, some places it's got no lines or whatever. But we didn't, as we did it, we did not go to standards on what needed to be in place. And so we found what was good money at one point was kind of left out there before. I think that if we just go ahead and create the necessary standards and maybe limit facade so that it can have a greater benefit to more businesses, then it may have a different impact. I think before it was 5,000 total, and it was 5,000 match. That sound right?
5,000 grant, and after the 5,000, there was a 50/50 cost share.
So I think if we can come up with some consensus on what we can do to kind of create a greater benefit and spread it further throughout the district, it might be better than just trying to do 4 $5,000 grants. Because we know that most people are going to max out on what they do. Any other thoughts or comments?
Reference Christmas lights, just for my education. Do we have to pay somebody for the lights that we use, and extra wattage, kilowatts and all that stuff, and putting them up and taking them down?
That's exactly right, yes. What they do is they come through and they light all of the trees up to a certain height, main branches. They wrap all of the corner posts in garland. They put bows on each side of the corner posts, and then all of the other posts get the flags put up. In addition to the clock tower being wrapped.
Well, is this 30,000, does that include?
It includes the lights, putting them up, taking them down. Putting it all up.
That can get expensive.
Not the cost to operate.
It's not, again, the cost to operate is separate. Look at that in our electric bill.
Oh. And that's per year.
Their Christmas comes around every year?
Yeah, and that's per year.
That's per year, yeah.
That's a recurring expense.
Expensive.
Yeah.
We can rethink that one.
We're using LED lights. Glad to have you here, Mr. Teacher. On the facades, you worked on facades before, right? Did you do some of the facade stuff before?
Physically working on them, yes,
Yeah.
but not on the grants, yeah.
Yeah. Just on the 5,000 I guess my question would be, using that, if the 5,000 match, is there, what's your take on whether that would be sufficient, or should we limit it to certain aspects?
You know, I'm a conservative. I personally think that if you're going to be in business, you need to be in business and be able to support your own business and not, you know, I can see if you want to give a $5,000 grant, somebody should be able to pony up the extra 5,000 and have some skin in the game, but that's just my 2 cents. On the signage, I'd like to go back there real quick. It seems to me like you guys would be in a really good position right now to either incorporate something in your comp plan, or if you guys have any strategic planning coming up, to evaluate the downtown area that you want to target for signage, and start thinking about that, and have, you know, get that in a plan form, so you don't have to have these conversations back and forth, come up with a prescriptive design for what everybody likes to see a sign look like historically or whatever, and then put that out there and you're done.
Yeah, we did that. So in Midtown, I had an office in Midtown and Daytona, and with the CRA, they basically suggested the language of the ordinance and the designs,
Yeah.
and brought it to the commission. And what they did there was, the only grant that they had available was a $500, you got a $500 startup grant for anyone coming into the district as an incentive.
There you go.
And it went, and they limited where it could go.
For signage or for beautification, or, yeah. Yeah, you know, I support small business at the same time. If somebody goes into business and they don't have the means to continue, you know, it is. So it could just be throwing $5,000 away. So I would definitely want to see them have some skin in the game.
Anything else? Anything else?
No, I don't believe so. We may be coming back to you. Obviously, we have a little bit of money to move around or to use to where we don't have to move around for the marketing. However, because there are the additional requests, like the wayfinding, that sort of thing, and we only have roughly $50,000 to reallocate, give or take, I have to come up with a good percentage. I would say that we might have to look at cutting a couple of these programs, or a couple of these lines to reallocate, because the request was 60 plus in that letter if we're going to move forward with everything. So that's just something that needs to be considered. But as of right now, we can definitely move forward with the wayfinding and the marketing. That's just a note. I'll be sending a follow-up email.
Can I ask one more question real quick? On the Christmas tree lighting, it seems to be an aggravating factor for everybody. Is it get bid out every year?
No, I think last year was the first year that we actually contracted it out.
I'm sorry?
Last year was the first year we contracted the lights out, right?
Christmas
Second.
lights?
Second year.
Did y'all bid it out?
I solicited quotes. I'll hopefully be bidding it out next year, because that was a lot less.
Yeah, I would think if you did that, that's going to keep everybody honest. But
A question, are they just doing the trunks and
We
the
can all
things,
just
are
get
they
up and lift
doing?
and do it ourselves.
No.
I'll take the pictures.
I'm just asking, were they doing just the trunk?
No, there is the trunk and the main limbs up to a certain height, I believe it's 16 feet, without having to do front of me. It's high.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to South? Once I move on, we're not going back. I'm just kidding.
On the Christmas lights, I'm still stumped.
I got a recommendation.
Explain, we do have a list, but just explain why there was a move away from doing the lights in-house as opposed to going to contract. I think that may answer part of your question.
It took a tremendous amount of in-house staff time, and it really took staff away from their primary roles for about 2 to 3 solid weeks. I was personally in the list a couple of times just to make sure that the quality was pretty good and the spacing looked good. It's, from my own experience, it's fairly intensive work. So you're not just wrapping lights, you're cutting tree limbs, and, you know, dusting ants off you, and,
And
you know.
it's incurring overtime charges that are just about equal. The overtime charges are about equal.
If you calculate it, you're
You know, when it
And so we
started,
didn't get much done.
No, they're working all night, they're trying to work all day.
when it started out, if the Main Street guy came and he wanted to do it himself. So he got up there and did it all himself. So after he left.
I started out in the fire department,
Okay, yeah.
all the way down. We really not.
We need to review.
That's what the stuff she just said.
So they gave us illustrations.
Commissioner Moore, what was your recommendation?
No, I might retract that because based on, I mean, I think if we had like a overall task, a punch list of all the things that happens, the equipment that's needed, and different things of that nature, it'll give a better picture. But my idea was to have a full-time person do it. With $30,000, you could probably, no, what I'm saying is, it could take them all year. But this what your job is. We buy no, we just get them put up, and you can start at 6 months out or 4 months out. You know, but that was just my idea. But
Commissioner, if that's something the board wants us to entertain, we can look at getting a contract employee or contract employees to do that task.
Yeah.
We're willing to try that. I can tell you personally, I don't like seeing that $30,000 expense in what we're proposing to you, but it's realistic, and that's what we try to do,
Right.
give you a realistic expense. So we can give it a shot, see if it brings the cost down, because it is a recurring expense, and it's kind of hard to swallow.
What are the costs of the lights?
No, because the last year we self-funded.
We could get that
I'll
information.
get that figure.
yeah, I think we can entertain some things. I mean, even if you got 2 people, 10,000 or 15,000 a person or whatever to 2 people, but we can.
Doesn't the 30,000, does the 30,000 include the lights as well?
Yes.
So it's not 30,000.
I understand, but this is every year. It's an every year thing. If we purchase the lights
Yes, we do.
and we had the staff, contracted people, then I think it's something that we need to look at and consider.
I think the numbers, if I recall from last year, because I was the person kicking and screaming last year more than anybody, was that the numbers last year came out to be around $22,000 that we were actually spending on this from a staffing perspective to do it in-house. And if there was anything that went wrong with the lights, we had to go out and spend the additional money. The way this is set up, they actually come in and do the repairs and they do the staffing. And it was a better quality of what we had. I promise you, I'm not the most Christmassy person. But from a logical standpoint, it freed the labor up, it freed our labor up to do more things, and it made more sense. Does the number make you want to stand up and clap? Nope. But logically, it just makes more sense to do it that way, because you're talking about locking down staff for 3 weeks and doing this other stuff and having to deal with all the other responsibility and costs that go along with it. And then you've got a company that's going to come in here and do it, and they're going to be held to a standard that's going to be higher than our own standard. And they actually complained that we didn't have certain things that they wanted in place the first time, so they actually had us improve certain conditions so that they would even consider doing it on the following year. So, we can look at the numbers and measure it out again and see what we got and go from there. But I can promise you, I'm not a Christmas light fan, but 30 grand for what we got was better than what we've been doing.
Yeah, and actually, they gave us a bit of a discount as a reoccurring. I know that still sounds very
That sounds worse.
And we're using the city's lift, so they cut the lift charge for the larger oaks down at the river that require a lift, and the clock tower, wrapping it from top to bottom, will probably lift as well. So, they cut that cost out and agreed to use our lift. So we're trying to do it as inexpensively as possible, but it's a big expense. It hurts me.
By all means, if you can find the savings, then we'll take it.
If we don't do them, we're going to hear about it.
Sure will.
We'll hear about it anyway.
Sure will.
And they're on the
So,
That promoting lights and all the thing, they have nights of lights.
Yeah, I actually talked with the company
Yes,
that does the
every-
St. Augustine lights, and they were a lot.
moving on past the lights.
Yes, sir. All right.
Next up.
So we're moving into South Storage right now. The Homes and Garden Tour, although it's only $500, it's budgeted each year as a request. I really haven't seen any momentum, but they're planning on doing it this year, so that's a good thing. We have some of the recurring costs, the annual dues. We did put 2 projects in for the HIP they did want to cut and no longer fund the commercial or the rehab, residential rehab grants. So those two are not funded. We, same as downtown, and like I said earlier, for all the districts, we're gonna add the professional services line so that we can revamp the programs, look at the plans. Let's see, signage was still included. River Street improvement, that's one of your rollover projects, therefore you'll see that the revenues that we're bringing in is actually less than what we had budgeted, and that's one of those projects that you were talking about. Festivals are in there again, and landscaping. The transfers include general admin expense and to utility, a portion or the half of the CRA administrator salary, a percentage, and then a debt service that was previously committed for the SRF potable. Any questions on staff?
I just have a question,
Yeah, sure.
and it may be self-explanatory,
No,
but I'm
it's
gonna ask it anyway. What exactly is the home and our influence? I'm not familiar with that.
So, it was a few years since the South has actually done it. They recruit homeowners that have the homes and sometimes just the gardens that they'll allow people to come in and tour through. So they decorate them. It's typically done either in the spring or around Christmas time. And they'll charge for that as a fundraiser, and it's a way to expose outside people to the districts, because a lot of people will travel great distances to do a home tour.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You said you eliminated the commercial and residential rehabs, and you, going up to the HIP program, you have a $35,000 projected currently, and then you're dropping it $5,000. Why?
Yes, so we have to, typically, it starts out with 30,000 each year, and then how we talked about, we reallocate based on some of the projects that were done. So that's why you're gonna see a projected of 35 and then a 30. So what we don't get complete in this fiscal year will end up rolling over, and it may look like 40,000 next year, or whenever we do an amendment.
Where will that capital come from?
I'm sorry?
Where will the extra money come from if you do need it?
Yes, so we will see if the projects were finished or were not finished, then it'll go into that reserve amount and the roll forward.
Okay, so that is telling reserve. And then you've got, on the signage, you went from 3,000 actual to 1,000. It just seems like that's going in the wrong direction. Why?
Well, we had to reduce somewhere within because we are already over budgeted from what the revenues that we're gonna bring in. Always, whenever we look at and we get the October figures, if we go up, then we will be able to reallocate some of those additional revenues that I didn't project to come in. Also, same way in the other direction, if it goes down and I have to do an amendment, you may see cuts somewhere else in this budget.
The transfer to the utility south water replacement for fiscal year 18, that's carried forward, correct?
Correct.
That's gonna
Okay.
be, yes, that'll be a recurring.
When does that go away?
It'll be a recurring, it's 20 years.
It's been 20 years, we're on.
So that's debt service?
Yes.
Okay,
That's for the potable water line replacement.
okay.
Most of us say SRF period. Go ahead.
Clarification on the signage, you're going to see some of those numbers going down because this year we were able to buy a lot of the new street blade signs and stop signs. We don't expect to have to spend those every single year, and the wayfinding sign has been ordered. So you're going to see that in each district, that expense going down.
Okay.
And clarification on the commercial and residential rehab grant. The commercial program expired because it was written as a pilot program. There is some discussion about bringing that back forward because we're seeing some good numbers as far as just value of property and how it basically incentivizes additional private investment and what that's done for those property values on those two projects that we've done with the private parties. The residential rehab is still active. It's just one of those programs that doesn't have a deadline. Anybody can make application throughout the year. The application is reviewed, and the CRA board, within it making a recommendation for award to the commission, would also make a recommendation for a budget amendment. So that program is
So that would be unanticipated revenue at that time?
You'd have to take it from somewhere else when you had an application to consider.
Okay.
So why wouldn't we go ahead and line in the commercial rehab, particularly since we see that there is greater benefit in commercial rehab than residential rehab? at all, and HIP.
Well, actually, both of those programs should be considered together because they're both cost-share programs, 50/50, versus the HIP, which gives you $10,000 with no match. And the HIP projects don't actually result in a certificate of occupancy or a building permit, nothing that requires the property appraiser to go back and look at the property. So you're not seeing any increase in increment value associated with those projects. So I would suggest, Mayor, that if you're asking for an allocation, you put it in what we call redevelopment incentives, so that they can be allocated to projects like the commercial and the residential rehab throughout the year.
I would ask that I would ask that we at least have a line in there of 15 to 20,000 towards those two programs, because at least once you've done those commercial properties, you can see a difference in what you're going to get as far as the value of the property compared to what we're doing in residential. Just by painting the house or doing some of this other stuff that we get with the HIP program, you don't see the results because it doesn't change the value of the house. But when we're doing stuff like you got with Bartram or you got with Duck Realty, then you can actually see those numbers come back in tax increment, and you recoup those dollars much faster than you do these 30,000 that you got allocated for HIP. So I think it's better spent from. So on the River Street improvements, what are we looking at doing for River Street?
That project has been there for a couple of years. At the request of the neighborhood association, they wanted traffic calming on River Street. We've had multiple conversations at this board as well as the commission meeting about what those traffic calming measures would be. We kind of settled on the fact that it may be a four-way stop at River and Laurel and a combination of textured enhancements at the intersections, be it real brick with concrete ribbon curves or a textured asphalt that look like brick. We've just been waiting for these much larger capital improvement projects, the potable water and the stormwater projects, which are both funded right now and one is on the way to be done. We don't want to have to rip that up once we're done.
So while we're waiting, can we cut that project in half for this year and use the other allocation to fund the other two projects, the commercial rehab and residential rehab?
Correct.
Right, we have 30,000 in HIP, and then another thing is, we are waiting, so if you'll see, these say projected, not actuals. So one of the things that we have to recurring put in our budget is the debt service, that 25,000. However, I'm not exactly sure if we're gonna have to pay that this year. It may get pushed out, I'm still waiting to hear back from SRF. Therefore, we're gonna keep it in the budget, but if it does go back down into the reserve line, we can reallocate it out to one of those projects.
But why can't we cut River Street down to 25,000 improvements now, budget for these two programs now, and then if there's some additional money, then we can come back and revisit River Street?
As long as they don't feel like they're gonna do anything on River Street or do that much on River Street next year.
Right, from the judging by the way River Street looks, we'll be okay for now, I
We
think,
can figure it out.
until we get to that point.
It's safe to say we'll be tearing it up for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I would bet on that too. So does that
We
make
can make
sense?
some-
Does that make sense to everybody here?
I'm good with it.
Everybody's in agreement? Okay. And then whatever contingencies that are out there, we can always, if we need to, later on, we can come back and revisit this.
I think this goes back to some statements you were making earlier about signage and uniformity in the signage and the appearance. When we issue grants for commercial buildings in the historic district, any district that this covers, do we review the appearance of the finished building to make sure it blends with the community around it? Do we have any guidelines for that?
It goes through the Historic Architects Review Committee, they actually review it.
So if it's in the historic district, it would go to the planning director, and they would have to get a certificate of appropriateness based upon the improvement. Some improvements are staff approved, there's things that they can approve here based upon the guidelines that are in the municipal code. Other things go to the actual historic preservation board. In the downtown area where your business is, there's a zoning overlay.
Right.
That it governs what can go there, what type of business, as well as what type of improvements. It's loose, but there's still some guidelines.
Because I know there's pushback about having it declared, defined as a true historic district, St. John's Avenue, I got that. But what made me pause to ask you this question was, I looked, whenever I was coming into the shop from the west end of the town, I'm not picking on them, so I don't think I am. Duck Realty looks extremely modern. It's very modern, sitting there in the South Historic District, where we have some of the most beautiful Victorian homes and bed and breakfasts. It's sort of,
Did you see it before?
yes, I did. That's why I was so excited when somebody was coming to develop it, you know. So that's my question.
If you look at the finish of that building,
That's where
you got stuff on the exterior of the Campbell building.
But the Campbell building has been there for eons and has always looked like that
It's
for
always been
eons.
catch as catch
I'm
can
just
over
saying,
there.
let's not miss an opportunity
I
to
understand.
blend in so it doesn't look like a mishmash from one street to the next.
That is a perfect example as to what I was trying to illustrate earlier with the facade grant program. We have ordinances, we've got the municipal code. We still can't tell them, exactly what paint color and exactly where different fenestrations have to be on the building. That's why programs like the commercial rehab and the residential rehab, which require a one-for-one dollar match, they should take a building that's vacant, not qualifying for certificate of occupancy, is honestly a better investment than $50. You're getting a better bang for your buck. We've had some good projects, though. Duff Realty, still a great project because it took an uninhabitable
Right.
space and made it
I'm not
habitable.
taking away from that, no, please don't misunderstand.
Because it's two different units. The reason the whole building didn't get done because it's two different owners.
And
Right.
the second
And
owner
the owner,
is
second owner
actually
came in and asked,
waiting.
and they're waiting for the program
Correct.
to be reborn in order to get that program.
But those programs are such a better bang for our buck on the end than the HIP program, which honestly doesn't really benefit us at the end of the year. It doesn't require a reappraisal by the tax assessor. It doesn't change the value.
Again, though, if you had this as part of your comp plan, you have a housing element in your comp plan, it has some definitions in it. Maybe you could add an element to it that would include the north and south and central tips and have some guidelines so there is no question marks, or if somebody comes in, it's all in writing. But
I thought that there were some guidelines, because they had something one time called the Green Book that the historical people were going into. But it also created a hardship for some folks who had an old house and they wanted certain type of windows put back in that they couldn't afford to put back in. But there is a guideline that was done over a period of time in the historical districts that they can only, they had a group that meet that stopped the lady from putting a fence in at one time because she wanted to put a plastic type fence there and it had been wooden. So, I mean, it's guidelines there, it's just that the follow through, I guess, to look at it.
The state, the Green Book is the state historical standards, and those are followed by the Historic Preservation Board for the historic districts. But
Right.
they're, like the downtown is not a historic
Right.
district.
but it's just,
Okay. So that makes sense.
Anything else?
That makes more sense now.
You got something?
no.
Anything else? Moving forward.
Moving forward to north. North is your smaller of the three districts. We are bringing in about 43,000 budgeted. We have budgeted 57,000. An addition of a landscaping line and the professional services line has gone in. They requested a $6,000 in landscaping, which is something that we haven't seen from this district. The general capital, I think I'm going upside down, but let me start from the top. Yes, sorry. Reduction of the Christmas tour. They did not request that this year. We have your recurring FRA annual dues. We put one HIP project in there. We were heavy in HIP projects this fiscal year. We are finishing out a lot of those in this district. They also asked for sidewalks. Some monies to be put in for sidewalks.
Where is that?
Improvements. I'm sorry?
Where is that?
North.
No, where?
Is that landscaping?
Oh, general
It's under
capital
land.
improvements, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Capital improvements. And as I said, landscaping is a new request.
How many feet of sidewalks? Yeah.
It's probably a lot, it's a lot of those sidewalks in there that are broken up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've asked for two things. They want us to come through with our milling machine. We have a small milling machine that, grind down the ones that are within a half-inch tolerance. And then they wanted us to replace some sidewalk runs. Well, right now, with in-house labor, we're getting about $10 a linear foot. So that would do
500 feet.
about a block and a half. Yeah.
We have a recurring transfer to the general fund for the north road that we completed this fiscal year. It's gonna be the 23,000. We also have the same transfers as in the other districts, the CRA admin and the general fund admin expenditures.
Do we need to look at the commercial rehab programs on that side? I know we've never historically had them, but there are some commercial areas over there that, and what we're starting to see is new action on Main Street. And even as you go farther on the right-hand side towards the chamber.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is rewrite the program to apply to all the districts. And when we push them back out, to really advertise them so that the people on that side find out they're there. I haven't had a HIP program for the central area on the north side since it got available.
Yeah, 'cause I know, I'll give you an example. There's one business owner who opened up on 10th and Main, who was unaware of any programs that were available through the city, looking to put an ice cream shop in, and buying a building that was vacant. And I think having those things there will actually probably increase the level of investment that we get up Main Street.
I agree.
And so, off of what contingency we have, can we at least start just allocate some dollars towards that, or there's not much to take from?
Well, there is that north doesn't have very much.
The North TIF district doesn't really start to the other side of Madison, and most of what we would consider to be businesses on that side of town are really in the CBD. So they technically will get it as well, and it's really CBD.
But there are some, for example, you got some businesses on Madison, like you got like the barbecue place that's right there.
But it doesn't go that far.
It goes to the railroad track, right?
No, sir, only the central goes to the railroad track,
Yeah.
the north stops at Fifth.
But the central also goes to Main Street, so they would
That
fall into
area-
central, wouldn't they?
That area between Fifth and the railroad track and Madison further, we had talked about doing an additional district there.
The depot district, yeah, the depot
Yeah.
district.
The depot district, yeah.
So we done around Main Street?
Everything stops. So north of Storage. So CBD is on the right-hand side, that's on the north side of Main Street. To the railroad track, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
from the road to road tracks.
but it stops
Laurel
at
Street.
And
Madison.
then north of Storage stops on Fifth.
Yes, sir.
And then we propose the new district to cover from 5th to 14th or 19th. Okay. Anything else that you guys want to see?
You said 5th to 19th Street?
5th to 14th or 19th, one of them. What was it, 5th to 14th?
I think we said 14. I think we said 14.
To Olive or Madison?
Or Depot for the new district.
Was it
We
13th?
didn't define it on the western boundary, we just used the Reed Street, we were going to extend out, we were going to use the blight study to define the final boundary, but Reed Street is going to be the backbone of it, and then Wilson Cypress District was going to go upwards to South 15th Street, potentially, depending on the blight study.
The Housing Authority is right there at 14th and Madison.
To get to encompass the business district on Reed. Commissioner Brown?
No, I've already.
Okay. All right, so it looks like we're good on north.
Oh, Ms. King.
I'm sorry.
We've talked about the commercial redevelopment in the north and in the south. There is no commercial redevelopment money in the city. It's all
We were going to rewrite the program to include all districts.
Thanks.
She did mention that. She,
Because there are homes that have been bed and breakfast in the north in the past. An owner might come in wanting to buy a larger home and turn it into a bed and breakfast, and therefore we would have a program in place there as
Right.
well.
Wonderful.
Any questions?
None so far. We good? Anything else? Yeah, that's-
That's it.
We are, closing comments, anything from the audience? Ms. Dietrich, good to have you here.
Can't wait 10 days.
Um,
I'm leaving for North Beach, just leaving.
just for those who don't know you, can you stand and introduce yourself?
Hi, Laura Dietrich, Dietrich Planning, 20 years urban planner, spent half my career in Palatka, everyone muscled through it, and I'm still here.
And,
Good to see you back.
Everyone else who's here in representative capacity, we've got Ms. Lynch here from SBDC, also Mr. Parsons, you're in representative capacity, stand up and just let us know what organization.
So, I'm with the Black Young Professionals. We've done a lot of events here.
David Parsons.
David.
Yes, sir, we got a young man in the back. Thank you.
Oh, is there another one?
You're the youngest in the back. I don't know, so it's a race between you and Sonny.
I'll revitalize this work flag, which most of you know, I guess. One thing I did want to mention that we're currently working with Jonathan, and I think the city should probably pursue more things like this. We are going to put together a group of folks from the Sunrise Rotary Club and Revitalize Historic Palatka to install some of Jonathan's signs for him, so.
All right. Thank you. At no cost, right?
Yeah,
One
I'll
last-
see you later.
Oh, your side, Jonathan.
One last thought on the numbers for
I gave the
CBD.
gavel away 2 weeks ago.
When-
Past
As
president
we're
now.
doing as we're doing the marketing,
No, it's called getting on.
yeah, it is. So, what we're doing, the money we have for the marketing and advertisement piece, can that funding also be included as it relates to the facade or wayfinding? Make the facade grants, signage, or whatever it may be, as a part of that. And also, events for downtown, we don't have really any allocation for programming our downtown, so that we can place some money in there, whether it's $5,000 or whatever, for recurring monthly events or something. I think it's time that we start to do that. And so, in the marketing piece, I would rather see, just have maybe an add-on to the line that says that we can use those funds for recurring monthly events as well, which maybe, so if we're taking that number, we're gonna bump it up 20,000, then, maybe a portion of that we can use for that, or just set a separate line for monthly events, so that we can at least start to get people back there and start to draw people to downtown.
We can do that. And then I'll send a follow-up email to let you know of all the revisions and what the new numbers look like for you.
Good question real quick.
Closing remarks from everyone from the agency.
I'll start. So I was whispering with Commissioner Borman about the bass tournament that we had in here. It cost the county $96,000 to host that. $60,000 goes to the promoter before they even come into town. And one question that I've been struggling with is we bring in about $400,000 in TDC money, and I'd like to see a graph year over year and maybe month over month within those years to see what the heads and beds looks like post the tournament. Because I'm not sure that spending 25% of that total revenue on one tournament's a good thing. And the young professionals put on the Blue Crab, that brought people in, they stayed here, they spent money. They weren't dragging in bass boats and doing a 3-day tournament that we were paying for. And literally, we spent $60,000 to the promoters and $36,000 to pay for hotel rooms and meals. So it's 25% of the total revenue from that TDC goes to one event. And I don't know how the city commission feels about it, but as a county commissioner, I've got a little bit of heartburn about it lately. I'm going to be discussing it more in the future, but I just want to see if maybe you guys might want to take a look at that, because that is potential revenue source for some of the stuff you're talking about downtown that, in my estimation, would be more meaningful. You get 200 or 300 people hooting and hollering and watching the fish get weighed in, but those are locals. That's not bringing any new money. And then the $2 to $3 million of purported advertising that we gain from that, I don't know. Somebody sitting around watching YouTube television, and they mentioned Palatka, the bass fishing capital of the world. Are they running down here and sleeping in a bed to go fishing? Or is it just entertainment for them that we're paying for?
I think the other thing with the TDC is they've got, so sitting on the TDC, there's some money that's there for larger events that's set aside. There's a reserve also.
$100,000.
But there's reserve a little larger. But I think the other part is you can't get that 2 weeks of ESPN out there.
I personally don't see the value in it. I don't watch ESPN, so
I didn't until you start getting calls from around the country and people are saying, hey, you guys are on TV, and I'm not a fisherman.
are they?
Some of them are, some of them aren't. And you start getting those calls and people start coming. But you can't get it. That's a national, it's nationally syndicated. It's a large number of people that come. I think the other fishing programs, when you look at it overall, who watch those things, and you look at the number of fishing tournaments that we have here, it balances out.
Versus you had an event here for blue crab. How many people came during that event?
But those people that spend the night, there were not a whole bunch
They
of those
spent
folks
money.
that spent the night. And then you look at heads and beds. There's a distinct difference between heads and beds. Since I've been on the TDC over the last few years, you can see this. You can see the increase, and then what's happening overall heads and beds. It's not all just coming from the capital improvements that are being done in the factories. They were increasing before Project Purple and some of the other things that are there. So there's a steady flow, and there's a need for additional hotels here, I think, which will meet additional needs. So we've got.
I just, my thing is, I'm skeptical that we're getting any kind of return on our investment for the $100,000. You know, we're getting $400,000 of TDC money, whether it happens or not.
When you're going to the bass capital of Florida, it's kind of hard to not spend the money on bass. And so
Yeah, but we're having to pay a private company. Before ESPN owned the tournament, now they've sold it to a private group. We're paying a private company $60,000 plus $36,000 of their expenses.
But your layout, what's happening in professional fishing is changing with Major League coming in and being housed here in Putnam County. So you'll probably see you'll see a more competitive process as a
More competitive tournaments?
Yeah, and there's some insights of some other stuff that's going to come on as a part of that Bassmaster Elite being here. You've got people talking about bass fishing movies that are actually being in the process of being made. Paramount was here doing Bassmaster Elite, actually shooting footage for that type stuff. You've got Johnny Morris, who's renovating the Floridian and setting up for Major League to have its headquarters in this area. Those kind of things that are starting to happen right here locally. So those opportunities in itself, overall, if you just look at sheer numbers, sometimes you may find yourself questioning what it is.
Yeah.
When you look at overall impact, you got looking at what's out there and having those additional conversations with people who are investing here.
We're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars year over year to have this, and
it's not year over year because it doesn't come every 2 years.
but every time they come here, we're spending.
So
Promoters do well.
Huh?
The promoters do well.
I think that the local businesses will say they do well too, and those hotels that fill up do. So, but go ahead, it's your comment.
No comments.
No comments.
Mr. Garner, your first CRA meeting.
Well, I know you, but I have some questions I'll get with Jonathan, because I had a chance to dig into the codes and sign ordinances and all that yet. I will. But I think I got an answer to some of the signage you're talking about downtown.
Yeah, and I think, and Mr. Griffith and Ms. Tucker have been working on, they've been working on that. Those signs have come in finally, and we're going to start to see some of those up. I think it's a great idea to have the signage in that deals with the businesses themselves. And so we're moving in the right direction. It's a slow process, but the end result's going to be a good one because we're learning every day.
I'd just like to see us do more with our history of Palatka. I think it would draw a lot more people here, and I'm gonna help the downtown folks.
I move that we put a sign in the Brown's house.
People live here.
But in all honesty, yes. And I think at some point, the CRA needs to consider whether we actually do an RFP out for historical tours or try to seek funding for that purpose.
And to get some of the monuments down there for some of the stuff that happened. We have had people who have gone on and done a lot of stuff nationally and statewide for us, and they aren't known about. And if we had some of those, we could have a walking tour of the downtown that would get people into more businesses.
Mr. Kim? Ms. Kim? All right, I talked enough for the day. We're adjourned.